Good afternoon. I want to welcome you. We have a fantastic opportunity today to think to the near future about an event being hosted by the Nonprofit Partnership for Food Safety Education. It is the Consumer Food Safety Education Conference 2017. And we wanted an opportunity to connect directly with you, the health and food safety educators in the United States, the people who are very concerned about consumer food safety education. We wanted that chance to talk to you today about this upcoming conference and the benefits to you of attending. Please, as we go forward today, at any time submit questions using the question function. You can also send messages via the chat function, but please think about your questions and submit them to us so that we can spend some time directly responding to you as we get further down the webinar today. Again, thanks for being here. I'm Shelley Feist. I'm Executive Director of the Partnership for Food Safety Education, and it's my pleasure today to talk about the conference and to introduce you to the co-chairs who are making it happen. What we're going to cover today includes the fact that for many of you, I know you're thinking there's so many conferences. There's many conferences now just on food safety. So what makes this one a special, different, and motivating learning experience for you? And then we're going to talk about the focus of the conference and how it came to be and what specific topics you can expect that will be covered. The program is terrific, and it is our hope and expectation that it's going to really help you advance your work. Again, remember to type in your questions and even suggestions if you have, because we'd love to hear that from you. With us today are the co-chairs of the 2017 conference, Advancing Food Safety Through Behavior Change. They are Kathy Means, who is a Vice President with the Produce Marketing Association. She is Vice President of Industry Relations. Kathy is, I will just off the cuff describe her as a fantastic communicator. She is serving on the Board of Directors of the Partnership for Food Safety Education. She's been a leader in consumer food safety education for many years, helping to, in the early days of the partnership, and then, of course, doing a great deal of positive work to communicate with consumers about safe handling of produce, which has been a big initiative of the partnership and of our partner, the FDA. She's a master communicator and just a pleasure to work with. And her co-chair is Frank Yiannas. He is the Vice President of Food Safety for Wal-Mart. Frank is a thought leader in food safety, no question, and expert on food safety culture within the food industry. And we'll hear from him in a little bit. For now, I just want to thank both of them for being with us because they bring so much enthusiasm and knowledge to this topic that it's just been a great pleasure working with them. I'm going to Frank first. Frank, Frank's going to start. Frank's going to talk about, all that he knows about what goes on in this whole space of food safety. So, Frank, I'm sorry I got confused there a moment.
That's okay. Thanks, Shelley, and thanks.
I should turn it over to you.
Thanks, food safety educators, for joining us. I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. And I'm absolutely delighted to be talking to you today about the conference.
Okay, I turn control over to you, Frank.
Great, fantastic.
But I still have it.
Go ahead, next slide would be fine, Shelley. Great. So I wanted to spend a few minutes talking to you about why we believe this conference is unique and special and different than the many conferences that Shelley mentioned exist out there today. If you could just click on the different conferences that exist, Shelley, if you think about it, there are a lot of choices in terms of which food safety conferences you could attend these days. Years ago, there were only a couple events annually, but today you can attend some of these very well-known events. The International Association for Food Protection has an exceptional conference on an annual basis with within the United States. We all know about IFT. Some folks in industry really enjoy the Global Food Safety Initiative annual conference. In other parts of the world, there are some very prestigious events, such as the one in the Middle East called the Dubai International Food Safety Conference. In Central and South America, you have Food occurs every couple of years. But we believe that this conference for advancing food safety through behavior change is unique because it really emphasizes this point or aspect of human behavior and the human element of food safety. The other events are wonderful, and I encourage people to attend those, but oftentimes when you go to those conferences, you hear a lot about food science, and sometimes scientists say, those are the hard sciences or the hard skills. This conference is focusing on the human elements of food safety. Sometimes people say, well, those are softer skills or the soft stuff. But one of the things I've learned certainly over the years in my career leading large organizations, both at Disney and Wal-Mart, that it's the soft stuff that's really the hard stuff. And so to have a conference uniquely focused on the human elements of food safety and behavior change, I think is unique and critically needed. Next slide, please. If you think about this, let me pause and have you envision. Imagine somebody stepping up to a cutting board, cutting a raw piece of chicken on that cutting board, then barely rinsing it, then cutting produce, let's say a fresh salad. What is that? Oftentimes when I ask that question, people will say, well, that's cross-contamination. And while it's a good answer, and it's an answer I would expect an epidemiologist to give me, it's not the answer that I'm looking for. It's really a human behavior. I happen to be located in the state of Arkansas, and I like to say if you're trying to improve or advance food safety in the state of Arkansas, but you can think of your state, what are you trying to do? You're really trying to change or influence the behaviors of thousands, if not millions, of employees in the food industry within that state. And for me personally, I often am asked, well, describe your role at Wal-Mart. And I often say, and I mean this very genuinely, my job at Wal-Mart, I see, is to try to influence and shape the behaviors of 2.2 million associates or employees around the world. And so if you go to the next slide, Shelley, if there was one definition I would use to define food safety, it's not a fancy codex definition or something out of the food code. It's just this, and it's pretty simple. Food safety equals behavior. It's pretty simple, but I genuinely believe it because it's impossible to advance food safety without influencing and changing human behavior. Now, it sounds simple, but we all know that changing human behavior is very hard to do, and that's what this conference is going to try to do, is try to equip you with new techniques, new skills that will enhance your ability to influence and change human behavior for food safety good. Another concept that makes this conference, I think, extremely relevant is this idea of 3 degrees. If I were to ask you, and I can't hear your responses, what does 3 degrees mean for food safety? Oftentimes people will say, well, Frank, that's the difference between a product being cooked or undercooked. But remember, we're talking about social sciences and human behavior. 3 degrees to me means that all of us working together for one purpose can truly, and if you click on the slide, Shelley, advance food safety and get better at creating a food-safe America. Next slide. It's because it's this principle that's well documented in the social sciences about human behavior, human attitudes, even ideas, that they can be caught. They're contagious. And if you're interested in, I list the reference there at the bottom of the right-hand corner of that slide. Several studies have proven that your attitude or your behaviors related to diet or exercising can be influenced up to 3 degrees of separation away from you. For the food safety educators on the call, this is what this means. I'm told we have about 14,000 engaged backfighters. If you think about these backfighters going out and influencing at least conservatively 20 more individuals that get super engaged on the proper food safety behaviors they should demonstrate. At 1 degree of separation, those 14,000 backfighters have now influenced 280,000 people. If those 280,000 people in turn influence their friends, about 20 of them at 2 degrees of separation. Now we've influenced a group of 5.6 million, and you can see at 3 degrees of separation. It's a pretty large movement, a pretty large social movement to enhance food safety across America. And what does that mean? Obviously improve food safety and probably even save lives. And so one of the reasons I'm so delighted and encouraged to be participating in this conference is the fact that we are going to learn new techniques on how to influence food safety behaviors for public health good. And number 2, we have the potential to influence a very large group of individuals across this country. Next slide, please. Shelley, I'll let you take over the poll.
Yeah, we have a poll, and we're asking you, have you attended a previous Consumer Food Safety Education Conference? Now, we're giving you a few to choose from here. You might have recalled the conferences in Arlington, Virginia, in Atlanta, in Denver. You might go back further than that. But tell us, have you attended a previous Consumer Food Safety Education Conference? And we'll take about 30 seconds, and then we'll take a look at the results of the poll. Okay, and for everybody take a vote here. Final chance to vote. We've got 80% having voted. All right, let's take a look at what you all had to say. This is great. We really, I think we were all hoping that folks that were on the call today would be people who, if not previously attended, though we love our prior attendees, but we really want a chance to talk to you about what the conference offers. And I think Frank summed up very well what this conference is in the context of what's going on in food safety more broadly and the importance of that. So thank you very much. I'm really pleased to call upon Kathy Means next. She's going to talk a little bit more about the conference, the program, how it was formed, where we came to our different topics. But here is, before we move along, this is the website for the conference. We will repeat this again towards the end of the slides. But just to introduce, there's a conference web presence, and we urge you to visit it. Kathy?
Great. Thank you, Shelley, and thanks, Frank, for setting this up so well. You'll probably hear a little too much excitement in my voice as we go along because I think so highly of this conference and what it does. One of the things we have here is you're going to get theory, certainly, but more importantly, you're going to get the practical applications of this. It's going to help you educate other folks. And help them understand why this is important. Obviously, before they're going to change their behavior, they have to believe there's a reason to do so, and that's your job very often, is to convince them of why this is important, and then get them to actually do it. So we're going to give you both the theory and the practical applications for everything you can think of, and I'll go into a little more detail now. So why behavior change? Why did we come up with this? Obviously, we don't win in terms of saving lives and keeping people from getting sick unless they change their behavior. And we asked folks like you, and we have a program committee that came together to determine the focus for this next conference. And they said, we really need to look at behavior change. So who were these people? This program committee is sort of a microcosm of the group probably that we have on the phone. There are industry folks on it. There are government people. We have representatives from consumer groups. There's academia, a whole lot of people. What they all have in common is this idea of helping consumers understand how to handle food safely. So they are the folks who told us we need to look at behavior change to make a difference. That's what would help all of us the most. So next slide, please. So we said, okay, well, that's great, behavior change, and then what? So these are some of the topics that you're going to see when you get to the conference. And I think you'll see very clearly that this is real practical application. When you talk about safe handling of raw poultry or fresh produce, which is near and dear to my heart, you understand that this is really about doing regular stuff, not a lot of theory for consumers. So how do we then take that kind of practical application, and how do we understand how to get consumers to do these different behaviors, to change? How do we get them to respond to what we're doing? How do we motivate them to get them to make a change in what they do? And you think about it, every time you make a change in one consumer's behavior, you have impacted them, you've impacted their families, you've impacted their friends, you've impacted the civic group or church group that they're taking food to. So the importance of the work you do cannot be understated. And making a difference in one person may seem kind of small, but it's not really. So next slide, please. So again, looking at some of the things that are out there, we're going to have speakers talking about these different topics. One of our favorites at the Partnership for Food Safety Education is TV chefs. We know they don't always exhibit the best safe food handling behavior, and we're all cheering at our televisions when one of them washes their hands. It's very, very exciting. And I imagine the same is probably true for you. So, but beyond that, so what's going on television? What's going on with the various digital apps that consumers are using as they interact with food and the food culture, all of that. Social media, how can we use that as a food safety education tool? Can you really pack food safety into 140 characters? Yeah, you probably can in some cases. So how do we use the tools that are available to us, again, to help us in this all-important aspect of behavior change? But also we need to measure that. We need to know if it's working. So how do we evaluate the work that we're doing? Next slide, please. So another topic we'll be looking at is targeting at-risk populations. There will be a whole thread for this particular topic, which is particularly important because we all know that at-risk populations are going to have a much better outcome if they change their behaviors, if they do what it is that we know they should be doing. So how do we take a look at that? Are there particular tactics? How do we work with older folks? How do we work with younger folks? How do we work with a variety of different communities out there? So that's another key thing. Now we've got some great keynote speakers. I will start right in the middle there with my co-chair Frank Yiannas, who is a rock star of the food safety world for all of his various career path stops. So I think it's very important to be able to hear from him and understand where things are going, his 30 proven techniques to enhance employee compliance. He mentioned, it's amazing the number of people that he has to influence. And what happens when you influence employees? Well, that's great, your company benefits, but then they also may change their behaviors at home, and we have this cascading effect. So I think it's going to be important to listen to Frank and what he has to say. We also have Dr. Lou Atkins from London talking about how do we design and evaluate behavior change interventions. What are the policies? She's written a book that looks at 19 behavior change frameworks, and that they draw on a wide range of disciplines and approaches, the behavior change wheel. So she's going to have a lot of great things. One of the things I like about this, and our third keynoter, Charles Duhigg, brings this to bear as well, is that we're taking a look at speakers not just from the food safety arena. We're also looking outside that to say, who are the experts at behavior change? So Charles Duhigg from the New York Times, for example, wrote the book The Power of Habit. He's also written Smarter, Faster, Better, The Secrets of Being Productive in Life and Business. So habit is very, very important, as all of you know. And so we need to understand how do we break a habit, or how do we change or influence a habit. So I'm particularly excited about the keynote speakers and taking a look at behavior from this perspective. Next slide, please. In addition to the keynote speakers, we have plenary sessions. We're going to look at the key elements of effective behavioral change. These are things you'll be able to take home and be able to put to work right away in your work. We'll also look at the impact of what affects risk perception and motivation. This is particularly important. I think the more examples that we get from folks, the better we can steal ideas. It's one of my favorite things about this conference is it's not just the speakers, it's also the sharing that all of the attendees do. The energy and buzz is amazing, and I'll probably say that a couple times during our conversation today. We'll also be looking at what the role of the federal agencies, USDA, FDA, CDC, taking a look at what they do to influence behavior change, to try to bring folks around to the national health goals so that we can reduce foodborne illness. Next slide, please. And in particular, mentioning the agencies, you're going to hear from the top folks at FDA, USDA, and CDC talking about this. This is always an extremely popular session when we look at the role of the federal agencies, what they're doing, how this impacts what you're doing, how you can use the various tools that they have available, the research, the information, all of that. Because we know you all don't all have unlimited budgets, and the more you can steal ideas, use resources, etc., the better off you're going to be. And that's one of the roles of the Partnership for Food Safety Education, is to develop free resources for you and then to put on this conference where we can bring you together so that you can get even more information. One of my favorite parts of the conference, and I only learned about this at one of these conferences, is these lightning rounds where you folks can share your ideas with others. And by lightning, it really means lightning. It's like you have 3 minutes to get up in front of people, tell us what your idea is, how you did it. You can say, hey, I need help with this, or I got it this far, I need more help with this, or you can tell us what a great success it was, or anything like that. But this sharing of ideas among our backfighters, among you folks, is so important, because sometimes it's just one little thing you take home, you replicate it, and poof, you have success, which is always a fantastic thing. Next slide, please. So the last conference in 2014 was, as I say, just amazing. The energy around it, from the participants, the speakers, everyone was just fantastic. You can see here what some of the feedback was. These folks, they took home ideas, things that worked. They felt like they got a great value. They said they were going to come back. One of the important things about this conference and about the partnership in general is the fact that we have everybody working together, industry, academia, consumer groups, the government, and we'll have all sorts of those kinds of people will be there. So your colleagues will be there. So we certainly hope that you will be there as well. So let's see what they had to say. It should be a little... I know. Can we back up? There we go. There we go. Because I think this is really important. Really important to see what these folks said. We put on a lot of conferences at my organization, and I go to a lot of conferences. I never see these kind of numbers. The 98% saying that this gave them what they needed to achieve their goals. 100% saying they took something home that was going to make a difference in their work. 3/4 saying the conference met or exceeded their expectations. And let me tell you, we listened to the other quarter that said there were things that didn't come up to snuff or whatever, and we've made changes for this year to make that happen. So ample opportunities for you to learn, to share, to network, to meet everybody. So now we can go on to the next slide. As I mentioned, networking and collaborative dialogue is huge. What you share among each other could be more important sometimes than even what you learn from our speakers. But those speakers are going to bring you these strategies, these tactics. They're going to be folks from all the different disciplines who can come and give you information that you can take home and make a difference in your work and in your outcomes. So you will get tools and resources that you will use at home. Next slide, please. And if that's not enough to convince you that you're going to have what you need, you'll get continuing education credits. So just take a look at this slide and see how this fits in. This is a huge amount of credits. Maybe you will get everything that you need for the year by coming to this one conference. So it's fantastic that you're going to learn, understand, and take home tools you can put into effect right when you get home, but you're also going to advance your professional career by getting these CEUs and learning what you need to learn to be more effective in your work. Next. I think you have a poll.
All right, thank you, Kathy, so much. So I want to remind you before we launch this poll, if you have a question or suggestion, please post it now. We're going to spend some time on questions, so please bring them in. And we're going to ask now a poll about what might prevent you from attending. I know there's different things can prevent you depending what time of year it is, where you work, and so we want to hear from you if there's anything. Maybe there's nothing that would prevent you, and that would be the best. So take a moment to let us know if there's anything that you can think of that might be a difficulty in your attending the conference in January 2017. We'll give it about 30 seconds till we get to about 80% of you voting. Please vote. It's great information for us, and it's great information for the other people on the call. Please take a minute to vote so we can get the majority of you, get your thoughts on what might prevent you from attending the conference. Okay, you're still voting. That's great. So I'm going to close the poll here in 2 seconds. So we can take a look at what is it that might prevent you from attending. And it looks like funding is a difficulty some of you have. If any of you want to offer more information, we have a post-conference survey or post-webinar survey. So please feel free to tell us a little bit more about other commitments, about funding, whatever. But thank you so much for giving us that information. I want to make sure Frank is unmuted because we want to bring him back in on the conversation as we move to the questions and maybe elaborating on the conference. Thank you again, Kathy, for really digging deep into what topics and can be expected. And as you said, a lot of great takeaway stuff. I think you see from our 2014 feedback, people really feel that they get information that they can directly put into effect in their work when they get home. Our early bird registration pricing is expiring on December 1st. So it is definitely worth it, and particularly if funding is a challenge for your organization to register early. And we will be sending reminders to you about this, and we'll make sure you have the registration link. But that's really only 2 weeks away, which is rather shocking. So let us answer your questions. What questions do you have for Frank, for Kathy, about the conference? We look forward to hearing them. I'm looking for, and maybe Mary can help me, I must have undocked the questions. I want to thank you for being with us today and also urge you to visit the website. I'm trying to find my questions again. Maybe, Mary, can you help me by taking a look?
Sure.
Yep.
This is Frank.
Oh, go ahead, Frank. Go ahead.
While you look for those questions, let me just offer my closing comments on this, and then we'll take some questions. I highly encourage everyone on this call to attend this conference and actually share it with others and encourage them to attend. I've had the good fortune of serving as program committee chair for the International Association for Food Protection annual meeting. I've served as the program chair for the Global Food Safety Initiative annual meeting for 3 conferences in a row. And I have to tell you, I genuinely believe that this conference in particular is a must-attend event. And why do I feel that way? You've heard us talk a lot about behavior change, but if you pause to fundamentally think about our jobs, regardless of where you work in the food system and what stakeholder group you represent, whether you're in manufacturing or in retail, if you're a regulator, an industry professional, or an academician, or maybe even with the media, our job in food safety is to get other people to say yes to our requests. It's ultimately trying to influence others. And you know, there aren't a lot of events or conferences out there that give you real proven techniques, real proven strategies, and how you measure whether you're making a difference or not. And I think this conference in particular, while it's been very successful in years past, I think it's really evolved, and we now have the opportunity, you know, early next year to have, I think, the best potential conference ever on food safety behavior change. And so we often say food safety is a shared responsibility. Those aren't just empty words, they're legitimate. And we can't advance food safety unless we work together. And so we need as many food safety educators, professionals from all segments of the food system and representing all stakeholder groups to participate. And I'm convinced that if we work together in this manner, we'll advance food safety and improve the quality of life for Americans across the nation. So I hope to see you there.
Thank you, Frank.
Well, now, thank you, Frank. Did you find
I found it, Mary. I did.
Great
I found the question. So I would like to pose a couple of these, maybe this first one to Frank, because I think another thing that happens is we learn when these folks come together how many people are touching the lives of other people and other families on this topic, whether they're in industry or public health or what have you. So we have a question from Ms. Miller, who's with us. In addition to being a food service provider and involved in food safety education endeavors, I'm launching a small business related to consumer food safety. How can a novice entrepreneur connect with industry? You know, is this conference a place for that? That's a question I think, Frank, maybe you'd like to take.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. I think this conference is a good place to connect with industry, and it allows me to answer the issue in a couple of ways. You know, I think at one time people thought that, hey, this was a conference mainly for the food safety educators, many working in health departments and ag extension positions. But what we're seeing is that this concept of behavior change is so applicable to all stakeholder groups that folks working in industry have an interest in attending too. They have an interest in attending because, number one, they're trying to influence the behaviors of their workforce. Number two, they're selling products to consumers, and they want to make sure the consumers handle and prepare them correctly. But I think what you'll find, and I hope this year, is that we'll probably have a larger industry participation than in years past. And so, yes, please attend, and I think there'll be plenty of networking opportunities for you to connect with folks in industry, and a lot of the big brands and notable brands that you're familiar with. They'll have professionals in attendance.
Yeah, thank you, Frank, and all. We have amazing industry support for this meeting because I think that a lot of folks in the food industry, we know, really support this work, and they understand that this work is done by really a network of volunteers and folks in public health who don't always have a lot in the way of resources. So I think that's another reason industry comes so powerfully together with this. Thank you. This next question might be something Kathy would like to talk about, because I think there's a lot of people doing this work with farmers directly. Hannah says she's doing on-farm food safety, encouraging farmers to become GAPS certified, how do you think this conference might help a team of educators who, food safety educators who are working with farmers?
Well, that's an excellent question, and certainly with the new FSMA regulations, we know that farmers need to, farmers who probably are already doing plenty of food safety work may need to document that and be able to communicate that. I think that one of the things I believe in for the Partnership for Food Safety Education is, regardless of who we are teaching, whether we're teaching farmers, food service employees, retail employees, students, whoever it might be, every time we make a difference in one person's behavior, and a lot of the behaviors that we see on farm about sanitation, about avoiding cross-contamination, about all of these different things, they translate into real life, if you will, the when we're actually eating food or whatever. So I think that there are important things within this. The other thing I would say is, for me, it's important for farmers and anyone else dealing with food to understand what consumer behavior should be. You know, the whole clean, separate, cook, and chill. These are also folks who can help us deliver that message. So you're dealing with a farmer, you're teaching them about the you know, how they should be doing food safety on the farm, but also can be teaching them about consumer food safety behaviors. Maybe they have a farmer's market. Maybe they have a way of including instructions on a package that they put out or something. Even something as simple as rinse, if say it's produce, rinse before using, if that's appropriate. So I think this is all one big circle, and it's hard to say, well, this is what industry does and this is what consumers do. Ultimately, we're all consumers, and understanding all of this and helping every consumer get it right, if you will, is going to improve the outcomes for everybody.
Thank you, Kathy. Another question that's come up from Mary, who's with us, makes me realize that maybe we should talk a little bit about just sort of the networking aspect, a little more about that, because she asked if it would be a big personal investment to come, and would there be a session for first-time attendees? I think it's an important thing to know, this is a pretty manageable size meeting. You know, we're hoping for 400, 450 people. They come from all sectors. Maybe both Kathy and Frank, if you want to say a little bit about sort of the scale of the meeting and what you think happens between the participants when they come together at this.
Yeah, this is Frank. I'm happy to take a shot at that. Yeah, I think even if it's a first-time attendee, I think you'll find that you'll be very happily accepted, and you'll be able to make contacts with folks. It's not, as Shelley said, so big that it's overwhelming and you get paralyzed and you feel like you can't meet people. And so I have found that during the event, in between speakers, at lunch break, people just tend to talk to each other, and you know, some of the richest dialogue actually occurs in those settings. And so you'll meet people that you don't know today that will be good partners for you to be more successful in the future. You establish relationships, you'll exchange business cards, and I can't tell you how many times I've met people that have been the right, you know, I just happen to meet the right person at the right time that I can go back to once I get back to my place of work and call them and ask for their assistance or expertise. So yeah, size shouldn't be an issue, and we encourage you to come and network and participate. I also think you'll learn that we'll have some events for people to have a little bit of fun, and in those settings you'll also be able to network a little bit more positively.
And this is Kathy. Frank's exactly right. I think this is exactly the right size conference. It's one of those Goldilocks moments, I guess, where there are enough people that you will be able to find folks you know, new folks, whatever, but you're going to find a lot of ideas here, but it is small enough to be manageable. It is small enough to find whoever you talked at breakfast. You can find them at a break later or a reception or whatever. And I think what Frank said is exactly right. Bring your business cards or whatever, because you're going to get so many ideas, and just being able to call up and say, hey, you mentioned you did this. I want to try it myself, but I forgot to ask how to do X. And I mentioned the excitement and energy. I think part of it is from the commitment you all have to making a difference in food safety behaviors, in consumers' outcomes for all of this. It's your passion and your commitment. And when you get together with other people who have that same passion and commitment, good heavens, if you were all getting rich off of this, we wouldn't even need a conference, right? So this comes from something deep within you that says, I want to make a difference. And when you get together with all these other people who also want to make a difference, it's magic. And come and see. I think you will find it. It's one of those things that's hard to describe, but it is unlike any other conference I've ever been to. It's also the only place folks like you come together. A lot of you may go to IFT or IAFP or some of these other conferences that have very specific topics and very specific people who attend. This is a much broader base of people across, as I say, industry, government, consumer groups, academia, all across these different disciplines with the same goal in mind, better outcomes for consumers.
Great. Thanks, both of you. Yeah, and we're going to do a fantastic reception on the first night. That's going to be a lot of fun, as Frank mentioned. We're also going to do dining groups that night. So there'll be small dining groups you can sign up for. So you can just meet, and really talk with a smaller group of, 8 to 10 people who are there, and go to the restaurant and meet some new folks. So thank you for both of you for that. I think it was helpful to talk about who's there and what the scale is. I want to recognize the significant involvement of a new set of donors to the partnership called the Backfighter Community Connectors. These are the people who are making possible this conference through their financial support. Our platinum sponsors are Ecolab, the Food Marketing Institute Foundation, the Produce Marketing Association, Sealed Air Diverse, and Wal-Mart. Thank you both to Frank and Kathy for their commitments. And then gold sponsors who are all made contributions to help keep the cost of this affordable and to make sure it happens. So thank you very much. I want to thank all of you for being with us today. Continue to look at the conference or sign up today, as I said, to take advantage of the early bird. We are on social media. We'll be talking about the conference there. We do weekly emails to Backfighters. If you are not on that list, I certainly hope you'll go right now and sign up. Mary Saucier-Choate is our Manager of Outreach and Stakeholder Engagement. Mary loves to hear from Backfighters about what they're doing. We right now have a fantastic campaign going called The Story of Your Dinner. If you haven't checked it out, I hope you will at storyofyourdinner.org. And then come and join us in the social media space, where we're doing a Twitter party this week, and we're doing the Hand in Health sweepstakes this month. There's a lot going on, and we want you in the partnership family. We're definitely looking forward to seeing you at the conference in January. And I thank you for taking time today to learn about this. We continue to welcome any questions you have about it. Thank you, Kathy and Frank. Do you have any final parting words? I want to thank you for doing this today.
Well, thank you, Shelley, and I encourage everyone to come.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Hope to see you at the conference.
All right. Thanks, all. Bye-bye.